The lights in the small-town diner flicker, a hush falls over the crowd, and the only sounds are whispers floating through the stale air. A man stands up from a corner booth, eyes brimming with anger, voice trembling with rage, and calls out his own wife for carrying a child he doubts is his. Gasps spread like wildfire, and within seconds, phones are out, cameras are rolling, and the entire place becomes a stage for a toxic family secret that will soon explode. No one, not even the wife, suspects that the biggest revelation is still on the way, one involving triplets and a shocking DNA bombshell. Charles Charlie Whitman was born and raised in the sleepy town of Greenwood. With a population barely crossing 10,000 souls, Greenwood was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone else's business, whether they wanted to or not. Charlie's father, Gerald Whitman, was a veteran who spent his evenings nursing a glass of whiskey and waxing nostalgic about his glory days in the army. His mother, Angela, was a homemaker who prided herself on her well-tended rose bushes and attendance at the local church. Charlie grew up with big dreams of escaping Greenwood's tight grasp and making it in the big city, Chicago maybe, or Los Angeles somewhere, bright and promising. He was an average student, more passionate about basketball and the local band scene than he was about his geometry homework. But like many kids who dream big in a small-town life, carried him along a different path. After graduation, his best friend, Danny, left for the Navy. Another friend, Marcus, went to community college out of state. Charlie stayed put. He spent his early 20s bouncing between odd jobs, pumping gas stacking boxes in the back of a delivery warehouse, and eventually working as a bartender at the Greenwood Central Diner. There, behind the bar's polished countertop, he developed a knack for hearing stories, an ear for gossip, and a quick wit that made him popular among the patrons. Locals told him their secrets. He listened, nodded, poured more coffee or beer, offered simple advice, and kept their tales safe, or so they believed. At 26, Charlie met Rosalie Rose Morales. She had moved to Greenwood from San Antonio, Texas, seeking a quieter life after a heartbreak she refused to talk about. Rose was everything Charlie wasn't: organized, detail-oriented, cautious. She believed in planning for the future, saving for a rainy day, and triple-checking the lock on the front door. When they first crossed paths at a local food festival, they clicked like puzzle pieces. Rose was serving homemade tamales. She'd prepared a family recipe she inherited from her grandmother. Charlie wandered over, teased her that her chili sauce couldn't possibly be as hot as Texas boasted. She gave him a sample, and he nearly choked from the intensity of the spice. That encounter set the stage for their relationship: playful challenges, light-hearted banter, and under it all, a growing affection that both found surprising and irresistible. 3 years passed, and Charlie discovered that beneath Rose's guarded exterior was a warm, affectionate woman who had the capacity for unconditional love. She taught him how to manage money responsibly and keep track of important dates. He, in turn, taught her to relax and allow spontaneity to color her days. Their love story seemed picturesque on the outside: two people from different worlds who complemented each other's weaknesses and celebrated each other's strengths. Yet, as anyone who has lived long enough knows, there's always more beneath the surface. The seeds of doubt and mistrust can sprout in the most unexpected ways, often nurtured by gossip, insecurities, and outside influences that thrive on stirring conflict. For Charlie and Rose, these seeds started small. A question about finances here, a sideways comment about old exes there. For the most part, they brushed these doubts aside. "We communicate," Rose often reminded him with a smile, "and that's what keeps us strong." When Rose got pregnant, Charlie was overjoyed, or so he told himself. He invited his parents and her parents for dinner and announced the news with a giant grin. Everyone toasted with sparkling cider. But in the back of his mind, a voice whispered, "Are you really ready for this?" He shrugged off the voice, certain it was normal first-time father jitters. The weeks after the announcement saw Charlie feeling protective of Rose. He insisted she take it easy, offered to do grocery runs, and gently reminded her to avoid lifting heavy boxes at her job, where she handled shipments at a small local clothing store. Those were the bright days, filled with optimism and a sense of impending joy. But Greenwood was a small town, and rumors had a short route from one mouth to another. A few women from Rose's old job, who were less than fond of her brisk, no-nonsense attitude, began whispering about an ex-boyfriend who had passed through town. Gossip claimed that Rose had been seen talking to him late one evening behind the store. The rumor mutated. The ex had lingered in Greenwood for almost a week, and someone had spotted them together more than once. Before long, stories that Rose's baby might not be Charlie's started circulating. Charlie, who overheard bits and pieces from his usual seat behind the diner's counter, did his best to ignore these rumors. Yet the more he tried to dismiss them, the more persistent they became. One night in bed, beside Rose, he stared at the ceiling. The thoughts gnawed at him like termites in the walls of his mind. Rose slept soundly, a peaceful expression on her face. He turned onto his side, watching her. She looked so serene. She couldn't have cheated, he told himself. But the seeds of doubt were already there, and he felt powerless to uproot them. As Rose's pregnancy progressed, her body changed. She began wearing loose-fitting clothes, and her energy levels fluctuated between bursts of vigor and hours of exhaustion. Charlie tried to be supportive, but he couldn't deny that the wedge driven by rumors began to creep between them. When she was too tired to laugh at his jokes, he took it personally. When she forgot to send him a text update about her doctor's appointment, resentment bubbled inside him. He never confronted her directly about the rumors. He didn't want to be that husband, the one who parroted gossip as truth. One afternoon, Charlie found himself idling outside a convenience store. He had just picked up a pack of gum and a bottle of water before heading to the diner for his shift. Through the window, he noticed a group of local women from the neighborhood leaning against a car. Their hushed tones and the way they glanced in his direction triggered a sense of discomfort. He cracked the window to hear snippets of their conversation. "The father of her baby is in question. I heard from Linda that it wasn't Charlie's. I can't believe she's playing him like that." Charlie's heart sank. Anger and humiliation rushed to his cheeks. He was a simple man, not particularly confrontational, but hearing these accusations stung. Maybe he should have rolled up the window, started the ignition, and driven away. But he wanted to prove them wrong, so he stepped out of the car. The women fell silent, eyeing him warily. He mustered a half-smile that felt anything but genuine. "You ladies talking about someone's baby?" he asked, feigning ignorance. They exchanged guilty looks before one of them, a woman named Sarah Alvarez, someone who had never been subtle with her gossip, spoke up. "We were talking about Rose, actually. Rumor is she's been keeping secrets, Charlie." He forced a laugh. "You shouldn't listen to everything you hear. My wife and I are good." Sarah shrugged. "Just be careful, okay? People talk." He wanted to tell her, people talk because they have nothing better to do. But instead, he merely nodded, got back into his car, and sped away. That night, a storm of anger and insecurity raged in his chest. He lay awake, replaying the conversation. Could Rose have cheated on me? Each time the question surfaced, he shoved it away. Yet with each mental shove, it seemed to grow more persistent. That weekend, Charlie decided to accompany Rose to her prenatal checkup. She was thrilled that he was coming along, mistaking his motivation for unwavering support. In reality, he had an ulterior motive. He wanted to look the doctor in the eye, rid any subtle signs of discrepancy about the due date, as if that might confirm or deny the ugly rumors swirling around town. Dr. Caldwell was a kindly older man, with a gentle bedside manner. He smiled widely when Charlie entered the examination room. "Wonderful to meet the dad," he said cheerily. Rose squeezed Charlie's hand, her eyes bright with excitement. She babbled on about the baby's movements, how she'd felt a kick the night before. Dr. Caldwell performed an ultrasound, and the sound of the fetal heartbeat filled the room, a rapid and comforting thump, thump, thump. Charlie watched the black and white image on the screen. He saw the tiny flicker of a heartbeat, the outline of what would become arms and legs. In that moment, tears unexpectedly pricked his eyes. "This is my child," he thought, a sudden swell of affection overrunning his doubts. For a few moments, the rumors vanished, overshadowed by the thrill of impending fatherhood. When they left the office, they passed a younger couple in the waiting room, the woman holding an ultrasound printout, just like Rose. The hopeful smiles on their faces mirrored Rose and Charlie's own. Outside, Charlie kissed Rose on the forehead, the swirl of emotion making him dizzy. "I'm proud of you," he said, and he meant it. She smiled, confused but pleased by his soft tone. "I love you, Charlie," she murmured, resting her head against his chest. Back in the car as they drove home, Rose cheerfully recounted every detail from the ultrasound. Charlie listened quietly. His mind, however, was a battle between hope and cynicism. The love he felt in that examination room was powerful, but he couldn't deny that a gnawing sense of insecurity still lurked. He needed proof. He needed answers. "I should just ask her about her ex," he thought, but fear held his tongue. "What if she admits something I can't handle?" That evening, as they prepared dinner, in a comfortable silence, Rose suggested they watch a documentary about expectant parents. Charlie grunted noncommittally, his mind lost in the endless whirlpool of what-ifs. The dinner was a quiet affair. Roast chicken for Charlie, a plate of vegetables, and pasta for Rose, who carefully avoided certain foods due to pregnancy guidelines. He studied her across the table, trying to find any sign of guilt. Instead, he saw only the woman he married, warm, caring, excited to be a mum. If only the gossip didn't exist, he lamented privately. That night, as he lay in bed, watching her sleep again, he wondered if maybe he was the one letting imaginary fears poison their relationship. Perhaps it was time to let go. Yet as if mocking him, the words from the convenience store scene replayed in his head. "I heard from Linda it wasn't Charlie's." Greenwood's diner was a staple in town life, featuring big glass windows on the front side. It was located on Main Street, right across from the post office. The place bustled with life, especially during breakfast and lunch. On a breezy Tuesday afternoon, Charlie found himself on the other side of the counter, sipping a soda. He had been called in early to cover a friend's shift. The hum of conversation filled the room, clinking cutlery and idle chatter merging into a comforting soundtrack. Unbeknownst to Charlie, Rose decided to drop by for a surprise visit, hoping they could share a short break together. She stepped into the diner, wearing a floral sundress, her belly noticeable at 4 months pregnant. A wave of hush fell over some tables as people recognized her. Those who had bought into the rumors began to whisper. It was a mild afternoon, but the atmosphere turned tense as soon as Rose walked in. Charlie, lost in thought, noticed Rose only when she was halfway across the diner. He gave her a small, uncertain smile. She, oblivious to the tension, approached him eagerly. "Hey, handsome," she said quietly. Thought I'd swing by. Before they could say more, an older woman named Edna, one of the regulars, sidled up to the counter. She looked between Rose and Charlie with that hawkish gaze she reserved for anything that might become the next piece of town gossip. "Afternoon," she said, voice laced with enough suggestion to suffocate a horse. She offered a tight-lipped smile that didn't reach her eyes. Rose, never one to engage in small-town pettiness, simply returned a polite greeting and turned back to Charlie. "I was thinking maybe we could have lunch together if you can spare a break." Charlie hesitated, glancing around at the watchful eyes. The rumors, the hushed voices, they felt like a swarm of bees in his head. His heart thumped painfully. "Rose," he said with an edge in his voice he couldn't quite control. "Maybe this isn't the best time." Her smile faltered. She looked at him, puzzled. "Why not? You're on your lunch break, aren't you?" He averted his gaze, focusing on the soda can in front of him, as if it held an answer. "Just not a good time," he repeated. A hush spread through the diner, though people pretended to be absorbed in their meals. Forks froze halfway to mouths, and ears strained to catch every word. Edna still hovered at the edge of the scene, a faint smirk pulling at her wrinkled mouth. Finally unable to bear the tension, Rose pressed Charlie. "What's going on? Did something happen?" All the insecurities, the rumors, the doubts he'd bottled up exploded. His voice rose, tremulous with anger and hurt. "Don't play innocent, Rose. Everyone here has heard the rumors. Shouldn't I be asking you what's going on?" The diner collectively gasped, conversations dying instantly. Rose's eyes widened in shock and hurt. "What are you talking about?" She reached for his arm, but he pulled away. "You know what I'm talking about," Charlie said harshly. "There are people in this town who think you've been meeting up with your ex. They're saying," he paused, voice shaking, "they're saying this baby might not be mine." He emphasized the last words, letting them echo in the stunned silence. Rose's face paled. She glanced around, realizing the entire diner was watching some surreptitiously recording on their phones. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out at first. Tears threatened to spill over, but she fought them back, struggling to maintain composure. "That's not true," she finally managed, her voice low and trembling. "Charlie, I would never—" "Then why is everyone talking?" he demanded, ignoring her pleas. "I've seen how people look at me. They pity me. I'm the fool." Right. Rose took a step back, as though his words were a physical blow. Her cheeks flushed, and the tremor in her voice turned into anger. "They're gossiping because they don't have anything better to do. You should know me better than to believe these lies." Charlie's eyes filled with tears he refused to shed. "Then why were you seen talking to him?" Linda said. "I met him once," Rose cut in her own voice, now loud. "He was in town for a night, passing through. We ran into each other, said hello, and that was it." "How dare you listen to Linda or Sarah or any of those rumor mongers instead of talking to me?" The tension reached a breaking point. Silence pressed down on the diner, as if waiting for the next bomb to explode. Edna's smirk grew. Across the diner, a teenage boy was openly filming with his smartphone. This was the kind of drama Greenwood rarely got, and everyone was lapping it up. Finally, the manager, a man named Paul, stepped forward. "Charlie, Rose, maybe you two should stay out of it." Charlie snapped, surprising even himself with the venom in his tone. Paul raised his hands defensively and backed off. Rose looked around, eyes glistening. "I can't believe you're doing this here, in front of everyone. If you have questions, if you have doubts, you talk to me at home. We're supposed to be partners." Her words struck a chord, but the swirl of anger, shame and doubt inside Charlie was too strong. In a final burst of rage, he threw up his hands. "Maybe I'm done talking at home, Maybe I'm done being the only one who believes this baby is mine. Gasps rippled across the diner. Rose, trembling, felt a tear finally break free and slide down her cheek. She squared her shoulders, looked at Charlie for a long moment, and then, without another word, turned and walked out of the diner. The crowd parted for her phones, still recording. She didn't meet anyone's gaze as she disappeared into the bright afternoon light. Charlie stood there, breathing hard, adrenaline pumping. Slowly, the realization of what he'd just done and how he'd done it settled in. He'd publicly shamed the woman he claimed to love, a woman carrying his child. Or was it his child? The question flared again. Despair and regret warred with bitterness, forming a sickening knot in his stomach. In the hush that followed, 1,000 stares burned into him. He could almost hear the phone cameras still recording, capturing the aftermath for social media. The clank of a spoon on a plate finally broke the tension, and conversation resumed in hushed tones. Charlie sank onto a bar stool, burying his face in his hands. He didn't know if he'd done the right thing or if he'd just made the worst mistake of his life. When Rose got home, she locked the door, ignoring Charlie's repeated calls and texts. She turned off her phone altogether, wanting to shut out the world. Her sobs came in ragged gasps as she sank onto their living room couch. The baby moved inside her, a flutter that might have been comforting on any other day, but now it only made her realize how alone she felt. She wanted to scream, to rage against the injustice of it all. An hour passed, then 2. She turned on her phone again, only to be bombarded by messages, some from friends offering support, some from nosy acquaintances fishing for a scoop. A short cutting text from her mother read, "Call me immediately." Rose closed her eyes, not ready to face that conversation. Charlie, on the other hand, slogged through his remaining shift at the diner, every second an excruciating reminder of what had transpired. Customers whispered to each other, sneaking glances his way. Paul discreetly offered to let him leave early, but Charlie shook his head. Going home meant confronting Rose. He couldn't bear to see the hurt in her eyes just yet. By the time he finished and dragged himself to his car, the evening sky was painted with hues of pink and orange. He sat behind the wheel for a long moment, head resting on the steering wheel, feeling like the world's biggest fool. He finally mustered the courage to drive home. He found the front door locked, which was unusual. Rose rarely locked it before he got home. He fumbled with his keys. Once inside, the house was eerily silent. The living room was dark, illuminated only by the blue glow from the television muted. The couch was empty, but he noticed a half-finished mug of herbal tea on the coffee table, still faintly warm. Upstairs, the bedroom door was shut. He approached the bedroom, heart thudding. "Rose," he called softly. No answer. He tried the knob. Locked. Gently, he rapped on the door. "Can we talk?" A pause. Then her voice heavy with anger and heartbreak. "I don't have anything to say to you right now." He sighed, pressing his forehead against the door. "Rose, I'm sorry." Another pause. He could almost feel her tension radiating through the wood. "I can't do this," she said. "Not after the way you humiliated me." "Please," he murmured, voice cracking. I got caught up. I was scared. I let these rumors get to me." "That's the problem," Rose said. "You care more about what people say than about trusting me. You listen to them and not me." A heavy silence followed. Charlie's mind spun, searching for the right words. Let me sleep on the couch tonight," he finally said. "We can talk in the morning." No response came from behind the door. With a defeated sigh, he trudged downstairs, grabbing a pillow and blanket from the hall closet. He settled on the couch and stared at the ceiling, plagued by guilt. Over the next week, the tension between them hung like a dense fog. Rose spent most of her time in the spare bedroom, refusing to share the master bedroom with Charlie. They communicated in short, clipped sentences. He tried to apologize more than once, but she shot him cold glares. At work, the diner was abuzz with gossip. People were quick to either give him pitying looks or scold him for humiliating his pregnant wife. News traveled fast. Within days, everyone in Greenwood seemed to have an opinion. Some took Charlie's side, arguing that if rumors persisted, maybe there was truth to them. Others staunchly defended Rose, condemning Charlie for trusting hearsay over the woman he loved. And in the midst of it all, a short video clip surfaced on local social media pages. Someone had recorded the entire scene in the diner. It showed Charlie raising his voice, the heartbreak on Rose's face, and her storming out. The video blew up within the small Greenwood internet circles, generating hundreds of comments and heated debates. One evening, Charlie mustered the courage to seek counsel from his parents. He drove to their small bungalow on the other side of a town, where his mother opened the door with a conflicted expression. She had clearly heard the news, her face taut. "Charlie," she said softly, "this is a mess." Inside, Gerald Whitman was sitting in his recliner, a scowl etched on his features. He motioned for Charlie to sit on the couch. The living room smelled of old books and the faint perfume of Angela's potpourri. "I heard what you did," Gerald said without preamble. Charlie sighed. "I made a mistake. A big one." Angela poured a glass of iced tea and handed it to her son. "Rose is a good girl, Charlie. If she says the baby is yours, you should trust her." "That's what I thought," Charlie murmured, sipping the tea. "But the rumors, they got under my skin." Gerald leaned forward. "Son, I wasn't always the best husband to your mother. I had my jealous moments, but humiliating a pregnant wife in public, that's a new low. You need to fix this, right now." Charlie's shoulders slumped. He stared into the iced tea, seeing his warped reflection. "I don't know how. She won't talk to me. Then give her time, but make sure she knows you regret it." "This kind of betrayal doesn't heal overnight," Angela advised, her voice gentle but firm. "In the meantime, think about whether you really believe her or not. If you do, you have to stand by her no matter what the town says." Charlie nodded. "I know. I just feel like a fool. What if there's some truth to it?" Gerald shot him a reproachful glare. "And what if there isn't? Then you've driven your wife away over gossip." Charlie sighed. The conversation left him feeling more wretched than ever. He thanked them and returned home, stomach churning. That night, he wanted to knock on the spare bedroom door again, but exhaustion and dread held him back. He couldn't handle another icy silence. 2 days later, Rose emerged from the bedroom in the early morning. Charlie, sprawled, half asleep, on the couch, sat up abruptly. She wore sweatpants and a loose t-shirt, her face drawn. A single glance told him she'd been crying again, probably through the night. He opened his mouth to greet her, but she spoke first, voice flat. "I made an appointment for a paternity test." Charlie blinked. "What?" "You heard me," she said, crossing her arms over her chest. "I want to put all your doubts and everyone else's to rest. Then maybe you'll shut down the gossip once and for all." He felt relief and fear battling within. "Rose, Her eyes flashed. "Don't say anything. I'm doing this for me and for this baby. If the test proves you're the father, I expect you to make a very public apology. If it doesn't..." She trailed off, her jaw tightening. He nodded, words failing him. In that moment, the weight of what he'd done crashed down. He realized how deeply he'd wounded the woman carrying his child, and how desperate she was to salvage her dignity. An apology was the least he could do. In the face of this ultimatum, all he could whisper was "okay." She vanished back into the spare bedroom, leaving Charlie in a swirl of apprehension and self-disgust. Little did he know the biggest revelations were yet to come. Revelations that would transform their quiet Greenwood lives into a spectacle of cameras, triplets, and a DNA bombshell beyond anything the rumor mill could have conjured on its own. Word got around, as it always did in Greenwood, that Rose intended to get a paternity test. This fueled the gossip engine once more, with fresh opinions and heated debates about loyalty, trust, and betrayal. Some insisted Rose was doing the right thing, while others saw it as an admission of guilt. In the midst of it all, an unexpected ally stepped forward, Maryanne Delgado, Rose's co-worker at the clothing store. Maryanne was known around town for her no-nonsense attitude. She had a wicked sense of humor and a strong sense of justice. She'd lived in Greenwood for most of her life, and though she and Rose weren't exactly best friends, they got along well enough at work. But after witnessing Rose's distress, how she'd become quiet and withdrawn, her eyes always rimmed with tears, Maryanne decided enough was enough. She approached Rose outside the store, on a day when Rose looked particularly downcast. "Hey," Maryanne said, leaning against Rose's car. "I heard about the test. Sorry you have to go through this nonsense." Rose sighed, clutching her purse. "Yeah, it's humiliating, but I don't see another way to silence people." Maryanne studied her carefully. "You know what might really put an end to this? Take control of the narrative." "What do you mean?" "Get ahead of the gossip," Maryanne said, "and tell your own story." Gossip is powerful because it thrives on unanswered questions. If you want to shut them up, do it publicly with facts. That means letting people see the results, hear you speak, and address the rumors head-on. Rose shook her head, tears threatening to return. "That might make things even worse. I don't want to live my life under a spotlight." "But right now, you already are living under a spotlight, except you're not controlling the angle," Maryanne replied gently. "You're letting other people decide what they believe. If you control the moment, you might finally get some peace, you and Charlie both." Rose was quiet for a moment, considering Maryanne's words. The idea of controlling the narrative was appealing. She was tired of being a victim to the rumor mill. But the idea of going public in an even bigger way was scary. Still, Maryanne's logic made sense. "I'll think about it," Rose said quietly. Meanwhile, Charlie was dealing with unexpected allies of his own. A day after Rose announced her intention to get the test, one of the local social media pages, Greenwood Gossip and News, posted about the fiasco. It was a brief mention, but the comments section exploded. Among the usual trolls and rumor spreaders was a comment from an unlikely source, Marcus, Charlie's old high school buddy. Now, living in another state, he stumbled across the drama and decided to weigh in. "Charlie, if you're reading this, it's Marcus, your old pal from geometry class. I know you. You're no saint, but you love harder than most men I've known. Don't let talk from small minds ruin what you have. If Rose is loyal, stand by her side and shut the haters down." The comment garnered dozens of likes, and soon Charlie found himself reading and rereading it. Marcus's words hit home. Don't let talk from small minds ruin what you have. Charlie realized that he had let other people's whispers corrode his trust in the woman he loved. For the first time in weeks, he felt a renewed sense of determination to right his wrongs. That evening, Charlie went to the spare bedroom and knocked softly. "Rose, I have something to say." The door cracked open, revealing Rose's tired face. "What is it?" He took a shaky breath. "I know you're doing this test to prove the baby is mine, and I'm sorry you even have to. I want you to know that regardless of the results, I owe you an apology. A real one. In public." Her eyes searched his face. Why the sudden change? He swallowed. I realized I've been letting the town run my life. I stopped trusting my gut and you. I'm done with that. I want to fix us. A beat. If we still can. A flicker of hope danced in her eyes, but it was quickly overshadowed by pain. We'll see after the results, she said, voice unsteady. Words are cheap, Charlie. He nodded, heart aching. I understand. She shut the door gently this time, leaving him alone in the hallway with his thoughts. As he turned away, he could only hope that he hadn't destroyed everything beyond repair. A week later, the day of the test arrived. Charlie insisted on driving Rose to the medical clinic on the outskirts of Greenwood. The tension in the car was palpable as they navigated the winding roads. Neither spoke. The weight of what was about to happen pressed down on them like a physical entity. The waiting room was plain, with dull beige walls and outdated magazines scattered on a side table. A flickering TV in the corner played a cooking show. Rose checked in at the front desk, and they sat side by side, not touching. The nurse eventually called them in. 2 blood samples, one from Rose, one from Charlie, would be taken along with a swab. The clinic promised results within a few days, expedited by a specialized lab in a nearby city. Afterwards, they walked out into the sunshine, both feeling a whirlwind of emotions. Charlie opened the passenger door for Rose. She got in without meeting his eyes. He joined her in the driver's seat, exhaling a deep breath. Rose, he began. Not now, she said softly, turning her head to stare out the window. He nodded, started the engine, and drove them home in silence. Little did they know, fate had a monumental twist waiting for them. The results would not be the run-of-the-mill paternity clarification. Instead, it would set Greenwood on fire with a story far more shocking than any rumor could have predicted. 3 days later, Rose got the call. The results were in. They arranged to pick up the official documents in person. Charlie insisted on going with her again, though she still kept her distance. At the clinic, a stern-faced lab technician handed over 2 envelopes, one with the standard paternity test results and another, strangely enough, with additional medical information. The technician cleared his throat. Ms. Morales, there is some interesting data here. It would be best if you talk to your obstetrician as soon as possible. Puzzled Rose took the envelopes. Why did something show up abnormal? I wouldn't say abnormal, the man replied. Just unexpected. Heart-pounding, Rose and Charlie left the clinic. Once in the car, Rose tore open the first envelope, scanning the lines of data. A wave of relief flooded her. Charlie, she said, tears welling up. It says you're the father. 99.99% match. He let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. I knew it, he breathed, voice shaky. Tears of remorse and relief mingled in his eyes. He reached for her hand, and this time she let him hold it, albeit tentatively. Then, with a trembling hand, she opened the second envelope. Her eyes flickered across the pages. Suddenly she gasped, dropping the paper onto her lap. The words blurred as she tried to wrap her mind around them. What is it? Charlie asked, alarmed. She swallowed hard, picking up the document again. This can't be right, she whispered. This says I'm carrying triplets. Charlie stared at her, mouth agape. Triplets, Rose nodded, voice quivering. The blood work shows an unusually high hormone level consistent with multiple pregnancies. Then they must have cross-referenced it with the ultrasound data from Dr. Caldwell. I can't believe it. How did Dr. Caldwell miss it? The second envelope also contained a typed note from the lab advising a more thorough ultrasound with a specialist. Sometimes, early ultrasounds can miss multiple fetuses, especially if one or more are overshadowed in the scan it read. Further evaluation recommended. Charlie blinked, his mind reeling. Triplets, that means we're having 3 babies. A hysterical laugh bubbled up in his chest. Oh my God. Rose slumped against the seat, tears slipping down her cheeks. I don't know whether to be terrified or thrilled. Charlie leaned over gently, wrapping his arms around her, momentarily forgetting the past few weeks of tension. Hey, he said softly, we'll figure this out. Together. She nodded, letting him hold her. The reality of carrying triplets was monumental, overshadowing the question of paternity that had driven them to the clinic in the first place. For a moment, they were just 2 people on the precipice of a life-changing revelation, a triple miracle. After the initial shock wore off, Charlie started the car. We should see Dr. Caldwell, right now. Rose agreed, and they drove straight to the doctor's office. Dr. Caldwell, upon hearing the news, scheduled them for an immediate ultrasound. This time, Rose watched the screen with heightened awareness. Sure enough, the new ultrasound, conducted by a different technician using a more advanced machine, showed 3 distinct heartbeats. This is highly unusual, Dr. Caldwell said, apologetic. I must have misread the earlier ultrasound or not zoomed in enough. Multiple pregnancies can sometimes be tricky to detect early on. Rose nodded, overwhelmed. Charlie sat next to her, holding her hand with something like reverence. As the rhythmic whoosh-whoosh of 3 heartbeats played through the speakers, both parents felt their tears flow. In that moment, the fear of rumors, the shame of public humiliation, faded into the background. They were going to have triplets, and that reality overshadowed everything else. In a small town, news travels fast. Within 24 hours, people who had once whispered that Rose's baby might not be Charlie's were now reeling from the bombshell. Not only was Charlie the confirmed father, but Rose was carrying triplets. The rumor mill that had so viciously attacked her credibility was forced to pivot. Now, the talk was all about how they managed to keep this multiple pregnancy a secret. Local social media pages lit up with comments, and the short diner argument video was replaced by excited chatter about the triplets. Some apologized to Rose publicly, while others shrugged and said the outcome was unexpected but overshadowed by the real drama. Would Charlie do the very public apology Rose had demanded? Charlie, for his part, was determined to make amends. He knew a mere Facebook post or a statement in the diner wouldn't cut it, not after the spectacle he'd caused. He considered his options, eventually settling on something bold. He contacted a local radio station, GWN 105.5, which had a popular morning show. He asked if they would let him come on the air, to clear the air, so to speak. Initially, the station's host, Bethany Carter, was hesitant. They rarely hosted local drama on air, but when Charlie explained the situation, Bethany sensed a compelling story that might boost listenership. She agreed, scheduling him for a 15-minute segment on Friday morning. Word spread that Charlie was going on live radio to talk about the fiasco. On Friday at 9 a.m., Charlie sat in the station's tiny studio, sweat beading on his forehead. Across from him, Bethany Carter, a sharp-eyed woman in her mid-30s with a voice as smooth as honey, grinned sympathetically. Welcome, Greenwood, Bethany's voice purred through the microphone. We have a very special guest today, Charlie Whitman, who some of you might know from the viral diner video circulating on Greenwood's social media. He's here to clear the record about his pregnant wife Rose and the shocking new developments. Charlie swallowed hard, gripping the microphone. Hi, Bethany. Thank you for having me. Bethany nodded. All right, Charlie, let's get right to it. Everyone in town seems to be buzzing about you and Rose. We've all seen the video of you, Well, let's just say you voiced some strong doubts about the paternity of your unborn child. Now we hear that not only is the baby yours, but there are 3 babies on the way. What happened? Charlie took a breath, heart pounding. Bethany, first off, I want to publicly apologize to my wife Rose. I let rumors and insecurities get the best of me. I humiliated her in front of the whole town, and that was wrong. Rose, if you're listening, I'm sorry. Bethany nodded, giving him an encouraging smile. That's a start. Can you tell us about the paternity test? He explained, stumbling through his words, how they'd gotten tested, how it confirmed he was indeed the father, and how the clinic's additional tests revealed they were expecting triplets. Bethany and the other station hosts exclaimed in excitement, offering congratulations. Bethany leaned forward. So, Charlie, what's next for you and Rose? Charlie rubbed the back of his neck. I'm hoping we can rebuild. It's going to take time. Trust isn't something you fix with a single radio apology. But I want her and everyone else to know I'm committed to being a good husband and a good father to our babies. The segment wrapped up with Charlie expressing gratitude to those who had supported them. By the time he left the station, calls and texts flooded his phone. Friends, acquaintances, and even random strangers offered congratulations or scolded him for his previous behavior. But above all, the sentiment was one of intrigue about the impending triplets. Rose listened to the broadcast alone at home. She had to admit, hearing Charlie's voice crack with emotion moved her. Tears sprang to her eyes. She recognized the sincere remorse in his tone. Still, she wasn't sure if a radio apology was enough to mend the deep cut he'd inflicted. Actions, not words, would ultimately dictate whether she could ever fully trust him again. Meanwhile, the official DNA report detailing the triple pregnancy was all the talk of Greenwood. The local newspaper, the Greenwood Gazette, published a short article titled "Triple Surprise for Greenwood Couple," featuring a small photo of Rose and Charlie from a happier time. People were drawn to the improbable nature of the story, a man publicly accusing his wife of infidelity only to discover multiple fetuses that ironically magnified the miracle of their union. Just when it seemed the drama had settled, an unexpected message landed in Charlie's inbox. Tina Caldwell, a freelance producer with ties to national media, pitched an idea, a documentary-style segment telling their story. Rumors, heartbreak, and the shock of triplets. Charlie was hesitant, but Tina insisted it was a chance to reclaim their narrative. When he presented it to Rose, she recoiled. Another public spectacle, Charlie gently replied, "This time, we control it." After a few days of thought and remembering how much gossip had twisted their truth, Rose agreed. Tina arrived with a small crew. In the living room, under soft lights and sound gear, Rose shared her side first. She recounted the joy of learning she was pregnant, the pain of public humiliation, and the silence of a house turned cold. Her voice broke when she remembered Charlie confronting her in the diner. "I felt like he chose strangers over me." Next, Charlie took the hot seat. He confessed his insecurities, admitting how gossip had poisoned his thinking. He described the crushing guilt when he realized the damage he'd done, then the overwhelming relief when the paternity test confirmed what he'd always hoped, that he was the father. And then Tina prompted, with a spark in her eye, "You found out it wasn't 1 baby, but 3. Charlie gave a small, emotional laugh. Triplets. Like the universe's way of saying, now you've got to triple up on trust. The couple filmed together as well, walking hand in hand past the diner and other familiar town spots. Rose remained cautious, but there was a glimmer of softness in her eyes, a sign of hope. By the end, Tina smiled. Your story isn't just about drama. It's about healing. When the crew packed up, Charlie and Rose sat on the couch, emotionally drained. "You were brave today," Charlie whispered. Rose gave a faint smile. "Let's just hope people see the truth this time." The filming didn't fix everything, but it gave them a voice on their terms, and that for the first time in weeks felt like power. In a small town like Greenwood, healing from public humiliation is a slow process. Yet the presence of the camera crew stirred a renewed wave of curiosity. On a bright Saturday morning, Rose decided she was done hiding. She walked into the diner where everything had unraveled. Charlie, who had time off that day, accompanied her. Heads turned the moment they stepped inside. Conversations paused. But this time, Rose held her head high. She walked up to the counter, asked for a table, and the waitress, a stunned teenager, quickly escorted them to a booth. They sat side by side. Edna, the older woman who had been part of the rumor mill, was also there, sipping coffee. She glanced at them, guilt plain on her face. The diner collectively held its breath, anticipating some dramatic encounter. Instead, Rose caught Edna's eye, then offered a faint, polite smile. It was a gesture that said, "I see you, I forgive you, but we're not going down that road again." Charlie cleared his throat. "Want to share a milkshake?" he asked softly, remembering how they used to bond over a single chocolate shake, 2 straws back when they first started dating. Rose nodded, blinking back tears. "Yeah, that sounds nice." As they sipped the milkshake, they noticed the hush recede, conversations resuming as people realized there would be no altercation. Some offered tentative smiles. Maryanne, who happened to be grabbing coffee to go, stepped over and gave Rose a hug, whispering her congratulations. Even Paul, the diner's manager, waved them over to let them know they were always welcome. In that moment, Rose and Charlie felt the weight of collective tension lifting. They were still healing, still raw, with the memory of how quickly the town turned on them, but now they were stronger. The cameras had left, but the real story continued, one of reconciliation, introspection, and preparing for not 1, not 2, but 3 little lives soon to enter the world. Despite this blossoming sense of normalcy, one final confrontation loomed. Linda, the woman who had first sparked the rumor with talk of seeing Rose and her ex together, approached their booth. She paused, arms crossed. There was an uncomfortable silence. "I just wanted to say," Linda began hesitantly, "I didn't mean for things to get out of hand. I just mentioned what I saw. I'm sorry if Rose interjected, her voice low. Her eyes locked onto Linda's. "You spread a rumor that almost destroyed our marriage. You do realize that, right?" Linda's cheeks colored. "I just thought, you didn't think Charlie cut in. You told people a half-truth and gossip blew it up. Rose and I were going through a precious moment in our lives, and you turned it into a circus." Linda looked down, twisting her fingers nervously. "I really am sorry." Rose studied the woman who had been a catalyst for so much pain. She took a slow breath, exhaling some of her anger. "I appreciate the apology, but remember, words have consequences, especially in a place like Greenwood." Linda nodded, offering a final quiet, "I'm sorry," before turning away. Rose watched her go, feeling a mixture of relief, sadness, and a sense of closure. She reached for Charlie's hand under the table and squeezed it. He squeezed back. Perhaps they couldn't change the past, but they could move forward with renewed understanding of how fragile trust can be. The final weeks of Rose's pregnancy were a flurry of doctor's appointments, preparations, and anxious anticipation. The specialist confirmed that while carrying triplets posed increased risks, Rose was in good health overall, and the babies appeared to be growing steadily. Charlie accompanied her to every appointment, holding her hand through each ultrasound, each test, each anxious question. Greenwood, for its part, shifted its attention to a new piece of gossip, some scandal at City Hall involving budget funds. But whenever Charlie and Rose walked around town, people still occasionally stopped them to offer congratulations or unsolicited advice on raising triplets. The short documentary piece Tina filmed garnered interest from a mid-level talk show, and a segment aired on a streaming platform under the title Triplet Surprise, a Small Town's Big Drama. It received modest attention, but enough positive feedback that Rose felt the sting of public scrutiny gradually easing into acceptance. The story had become less about rumors and more about the miracle of 3 incoming lives. Charlie and Rose decided to attend marriage counseling sessions to address the breach of trust. Slowly, they rebuilt their emotional connection, relearning how to communicate openly without letting fear or gossip break them apart. One evening, as they sat on the living room couch, Rose's face twisted with discomfort. "Ow," she muttered, rubbing her belly. "I think one of them has found my rib." Charlie laughed gently, placing a hand on her stomach. He felt the faint movement, like a gentle push. "Hang in there, Mama." She gazed at him with tear-filled eyes, but this time they were tears of hope. "I'm just grateful we're doing this together." He nodded, placing a soft kiss on her forehead. "Me too." They continued to film small updates for Tina, capturing Rose's baby shower, where an avalanche of gifts for triplets arrived, and the final sonogram, which revealed they were having 2 boys and 1 girl. The filming, once an intrusive concept, had become a therapeutic outlet, an opportunity to reflect on how far they'd come. By the time Rose went into labor, the entire town was on high alert. Messages of support flooded in. Anxious grandparents on both sides paced hospital hallways. After many hours accompanied by the whir of monitors and the hurried calm of medical professionals, 3 healthy infants came into the world. First a boy, then a girl, then another boy. The delivery was complicated yet successful, the operating room abuzz with carefully orchestrated movement. When Charlie first held his children, tears coursed down his cheeks. He marveled at their tiny fingers, their squished faces, and the miracle that they were all breathing healthy and very much his. Rose, exhausted but jubilant, watched him cradle the babies. In that instant, any remnants of insecurity or lingering resentment dissolved. They had arrived at a place of unconditional love, hard-won, but deeply cherished. As word spread, the hospital corridor filled with bouquets, stuffed animals, and visitors wanting to catch a glimpse of Greenwood's famous triplets. A tired but overjoyed Rose received them all graciously, with Charlie always by her side. They named the babies Adam, Amelia, and Aaron, a trio of A names symbolizing a fresh start. In the days that followed, Tina's final footage captured the baby's homecoming, the couple's exhausted delight as they navigated feedings and diaper changes, and the late-night moments when they simply stared at the sleeping infants in wonder. Life in Greenwood returned to its usual rhythm: mundane chores, local gossip, community events. But for Charlie and Rose, nothing was ever quite the same. They had survived a storm fueled by rumors and doubt, emerging on the other side bound closer than ever with 3 precious reminders of how fragile and beautiful life can be. No one forgot the day Charlie publicly shamed his pregnant wife, but the memory became woven into a richer tapestry of perseverance, regret, forgiveness, and ultimately the overwhelming joy of witnessing life's little miracles tripled. Thank you for joining us on this remarkable journey through heartbreak, rumor, and ultimately redemption. In the small town of Greenwood, Charlie and Rose's relationship was tested by doubt and fueled by gossip, only to be saved by truth, unwavering determination, and a triple surprise that no one saw coming. Their powerful story reminds us all of the fragile nature of trust and the immense value of honest communication. It also proves that sometimes, just when you think everything is lost, Life hands you a miracle, or in their case, three of them. If you've been captivated by this story, please show your support by hitting that like button, sharing this video with your friends, and subscribing to our channel for more incredible real-life dramas. Your likes, shares, and subscriptions help us continue bringing you stories that inspire challenge and remind us all of the resilience of the human spirit.